my gut reaction to this is like, why and how? I kind of know part of the why, because the W sound that we have in English, in Japanese, it really only exists with like two sounds. So we should talk about Japanese and how they utilize something called wasei-eigo. You could try to simplify it as like loan words or borrowed English, and that kind of makes sense. But things get like really, really warped, because it's not just like borrowing an English word or foreign word temporarily. It's like using that word as a substitute as like the main vocabulary. Let's start with an easy example. Go to McDonald's, you get fast food. Anytime you get burgers, you usually get a side of fries, right? So fries, French fries. In Japan, they don't say French fries. They use wasei-eigo. They say fried potato. And with the Japanese pronunciation, it comes out to be fried potato. Okay? So French fries, fried potatoes, fried potato, fried potato. Okay? Fried potato. And if you're familiar with Japanese pronunciation, like you can follow and trace that thread. And like it works. It's not too much of a deviation. The problem is some of these other loan words, they get really butchered to the point that they don't sound anything like the original. So I've been in the habit of trying to brush up on my Japanese again. Earlier, one of the listening materials I had, the context was this girl was ordering a Frappuccino at Starbucks. And if you think about the process, you go, you say your drink, you say your size, and then you talk about like your add-ons or your substitutes or your additions, right? And this is where I saw, here we have katakana, which is not hiragana. Katakana is always going to be present when we have those loan words being utilized. And I was reading this and I was like, what is the add-on that she's going for? Because if we break down these individual characters, ho, I, pu, ku, ri, I, mu. So kuriimu, like I know that's cream. Like that one's pretty easy for me. But hoipu, hoipu, hoipu cream, hoipu cream, whip cream, whipped cream. This is supposed to be whipped cream. And by my gut reaction to this is like, why and how? I kind of know part of the why, because the W sound that we have in English, in Japanese, it really only exists with like two sounds, like with the alphabet. It's wa and wo. But the wo is more like the W is almost silent. So wa and wo. Oh. There's no wi by the alphabet here. But what was confusing to me is, why is it ho ippu versus u ippu? Like if I do phonetically, yeah, like it still comes out to that whip. As a native speaker of English, like it sounds much, much more closer to that wi sound, right? So uippu, uippu versus hoippu, hoippu. Because we don't say whip cream, whipped cream. At least I didn't say that in Arkansas. I don't hear anybody up here in the Northeast and Boston saying whipped cream. It's not that big of a deal. It's great to make the observation, but if you really want to learn a language, you have to get over that. Like Stewie says it that way.
Oh, hey, can I get some of that pie and Cool Whip?
What did you say?
We can't have pie without Cool Whip.
That's not how you're supposed to say it. You said it weird.
Yeah, and Stewie's voice is like a caricature of Anthony Hopkins. Is Anthony Hopkins actually British? That's another thing that you have to make a distinction of. Like, not all of the loan words are American English. Sometimes they are British English, Igirisu, so English. And then sometimes they take other European words, but they don't know the origin of it. So in Japanese, part-time worker is, let me see if I can type it with Romaji, arubaito. Yeah, part-time. Arubaito. He's Welsh. Thank you for that, Celestial. Clearly, Arbeito doesn't sound anything like part-time, and it's because Arbeit is something in German. The reverse language aspect of it, again, like you can make the observation, Is it worth getting up in arms about it? No, not really. Like, this is just like something that I could talk about and share, because first of all, this is like the first time for me to see whipped cream like this. Unlikely in reality, the first time I was truly exposed to it. Like, I had Starbucks when I was in Japan. I probably got offered whipped cream, but I was at the time too focused on how cute the cashier girl was or something like that. You know, like my headspace probably wasn't there where I was fully, truly listening. If you break down the language and you reverse engineer it, it makes total sense why a Japanese speaker might have difficulty pronouncing some English words, right? Because again, the only true W sounds in Japanese are wa and wo. So if they have to do with, like, who are you with? Like, what'd you bring with you? What'd you bring with you? And with, the wi sound, if they always think ho with, you know, who are you going ho with? And you think like, oh, their pronunciation is odd. If you did not learn Japanese, if you don't have that understanding and you're trying to correct them on the pronunciation, you say, no, not ho with. Technically, that's what they need to do. But in their mind, are they going to be able to break it down, make that adjustment, or even hear the difference? You know, that's all those complications that come together with like language learning. So I always tell people that pronunciation is really unfortunate because it's something that people are always going to judge you by. You know, doesn't always have to be harshly, but it's something that people will audibly pick up on. There's always going to be some sort of like assumption made of that person's language level and ability. But it's one of the hardest things to actually adjust. Adding to that difficulty of improving your pronunciation is once you get to a certain point to really finesse and sound more fluent, to sound like a native speaker, it could be a goal. But for your day-to-day life, to actually work in a job, to do all your functions and responsibilities, you probably can get away with having, you know, a slight accent or having incorrect pronunciation on certain things. So people who always make that dream of like, oh, I want to sound like a native speaker, I wish I had perfect English or Spanish or Japanese or whatever, it's always good to kind of check and relate that and examine how does that apply to you truly. Is it just, oh, I want to be a native speaker, just like, oh yeah, I wish I had like $1 million or something like that, kind of just wishful thinking? Or is there a system in place? Is there like a really compelling reason? Is there a system in place for you to try and build up those skills? And that stuff always changes, you know, is the main thing. But it's a good, honest conversation you should have with yourself. I have to learn how to say the specific word. I can't just read words I've never heard. Some people, they really need to break things down, analyze it, jot it down, like have that note card, put it on a post-it note where like you're having to confront that vocabulary word essentially. Even in English, I have to question myself. This happens to a lot of people, right? It's a word that they use all the time, but when they're stuck there staring at it for more than a few seconds, like crazy thoughts kind of go in your head. It's like, whoa, is that how that word always looked? Oh, am I spelling it wrong? And it's like a really simple word that there's no way that you misspelled it, but just having to look at it in that way, you second guess yourself. It's honestly no different than the whole Bloody Mary thing, where you stare in the mirror, you say Bloody Mary 3 times, and, you know, you conjure up her spirit or whatever, and people talk about seeing like faces being deformed and stuff like that. It's because you're not supposed to be staring at your face for so long. Yes, there's people who are vain. Yes, there's people who are full of themselves. Yes, we have like the selfie culture that's all out of control. But to like really see and stare at yourself for like an extended period of time, it's just a natural type of phenomenon. Yeah, looking at those ending letters of the word receipt, obviously we know, but are you supposed to pronounce the P? You know, is it receipt? And like even certain words like abrupt, like where you do pronounce the PT, how we smash it all together, because it's not abrupt, it's abrupt. Like how many other words have those sounds smushed together, right? Language is weird. And we can just piggyback on this saying like how demoralizing it can be, because like you could have all these other sounds down individually, you can pronounce it no problem, and then you come across this word, you're like, holy crap, like this This should be a basic word, and I'm struggling with it so much, right?